And it's better than what we have. It's not great, but it's better.
Sue, are we ready to start?
Yes, I think we are.
Okay. Roll call.
Britt,
Here.
Watson. He's muted, Mr. Watson. Brenda McCain is not with us tonight. Wertz,
Here,
Hyen,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Rust,
Here.
Hanfelder.
Here.
And I'm here, Sue.
Okay, thank you. I thought I heard you come on.
Okay. Let's say Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Any public comments, Sue?
No public comments were submitted.
Okay. Dr. Tresca, budget health update.
Yes, sir. So I'll quickly give a sort of an overview of revenues and expenditures. These were also shared in essence with fiscal committee the other day. So on revenues, good news, we're projecting the same for local and state government revenues at this point. Of course, there's always the unknown variables, but at this point, based on what we're seeing, it's the same and we're looking good. We are projecting obviously a loss in tuition and fees as compared to the budget, but it's not as high this month as it was last month. And I think you'll hear a little bit more about that in the enrollment report coming up later this evening. The projection is based on the percentage of tuition and fees collecting through November 19 for fiscal 2020, just as a point of reference. The percentage applied with current year to date to determine what annual amount might be. So this is really grounded in some projections. I mean, we don't, at the end of the day, know until, everything I mean, what's the date? It's the, and forgive me, I'm a loss for words. It's the, is it the census date, or we have a certain date where we really know what the final head count is and what the final revenues will be. So, but we are down, but I think I'm hopeful we're trending in the right direction on this one. So in November, we did pick up over 1.175 million in tuition and fees, and enrollment will continue to be a priority of focus for us as we've talked about in our board committee meetings. Other revenue is still trending down. And as I think noted last month, this is natural in that we don't have the activities on campus that we typically have. And that brings inherently some revenue, whether it's through the dental clinic, the health clinic, parking fees, fines, classroom rentals, et cetera, et cetera. So, hopefully that stuff picks up when we reopen inevitably. And then indirect cost transfers are still projecting positively this month as they were last month. So that's on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, total fiscal year projected expenses dropped by several $100,000 with this report. Salaries and benefits, the projections there in total remain relatively unchanged. And then other expense categories had projected decreases in fiscal year total expenses from last month. Whether this continues to hold true will depend on timing of current and future expenditures. And if you want some clarity on that, I know Mary can help there, but that's just a matter of what's coming in and, against what's going out. And so it's always a timing thing. So overall, I know one of the goals of this report was to give a quick snapshot of where we're at. I mean, we are moving in the right direction. We are watching expenses. We are very cognizant of that. And we're continuing to look at, ways in which we can grow and continue to build some positive momentum for the institution. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the announcement piece, just to give a quick overview of where we're at as a leadership team around our strategic plan, organizational structure, and some of that other work that's going on that ultimately we hope big picture wise will affect the revenues for the institution. So I'll rest there. And Mary, do you have anything you'd like to add as CFO? Any clarifications? Did I miss anything?
No,
Not really. I would just mention, as we have before, that these are projections and we're just dealing with actual numbers here through November 30th. So we are projecting 7 months. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at the final numbers. We have a long way to go yet.
Thank you, Mary. Are there any other
Mhm.
questions? If not, sir, that concludes my report.
Thank you. The omnibus agenda, it'll be approved with one motion unless any board member wishes to pull any of the items for discussion or separate vote. No one wishes to pull any items from the omnibus agenda.
Mr. Chairman.
What?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I'd like to point out one edit that needs to be considered in the approval of item Q, the personnel report. There is an employment of one employee dated start date of January 18th. That should actually read January 19th. January 18th is a college holiday. So I'd like to suggest that we vote on that as an amended change to that item Q.
Okay, then I need a motion to approve all items with exception, withholding Q. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Bob. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Dwight. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes,
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
yes,
Okay. Under Q, as amended by Gabe, need a motion to approve the amended personnel report.
I'll
motion,
make the,
Okay, motion by Dwight, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Wertz,
yes,
Watson,
yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
yes.
Okay. Dr. Traska, is it informational item? Do you want to lead the charge on that one?
Sure, absolutely. So RST and U, I know we've got, if you look into your board book, we've got reference to those particular grants and sponsored contracts. So, I kind of push that back out to the board. And are there any particular questions on any of those awards or the scope of any of those funds? I'm happy to call on individuals that are on the call today to clarify that, but that's a general report and, supports our overall operations and some of the projects happening on campus. So that's for RST and U. Any questions on any of those that we can entertain or any clarifications? Okay. And then under V, we have some general announcements. I know one of the things I wanted to highlight in that announcement is just give a thank you out to our leadership team and our faculty team for the in-service that started yesterday. It's been very positive. We have a lot to look forward to this year as a team, and just want to extend my gratitude to everyone for, I think kind of coming to the table, willing and open to really look at the institution in some new ways to make the changes we feel are necessary for us to refocus and hopefully bring some nice growth for the institution. So in addition to that, the executive team and I, as well as some other leadership on campus, have been pretty much knee deep, so to speak, in the strategic planning process. This Friday, our survey closes internally. We extended that after the holiday, and we'll begin looking at that raw data and coded data to begin shaping our key directions and strategic aspirations. We'll then send that out to the external community for feedback as well. I will share all of that data in raw form with the collective team on campus, as well as share that with the board in a future update. So you're able to see some of the comments and perspective that the team is sharing. And then we're going to be bringing that to some focus so that we can set our goals and aspirations moving forward. All of that will be informing really the movement that we're making over the next 3 years. Our plan will focus on 3 years, and every 2 or so years, we'll begin revisiting where we need to refocus, where we're doing well, and where are some things that we need to maybe improve upon. Beyond that, the leadership team and extended cabinet is also working very hard on the organizational structure. This is something that isn't necessarily easy work or decisions that we're necessarily really looking forward to making, but we're looking at all positions on campus. We're looking at the entire structure. And what we're doing there is just making sure that when we start to set our directions and focus of the institution, that we have the right positions, the right structure to support that. It's been a very positive discussion, and I again want to thank everyone for being vulnerable to that process, because it isn't always easy to be talking about positions or structure, but it's something in terms of an exercise that we need to do so that we're making sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of the institution from a financial perspective and a strategic perspective. And so those are a couple of general announcements beyond, I know, what's in your board book, but just want to let you know that there's a lot of really good work going on campus, from evaluating our policies and procedures to each of the leadership team working quite diligently in their own areas to help the institution continue to move forward. I know it's a tricky time, but a lot of good things ahead. And as I mentioned to the faculty this morning, it's about all of us participating in really shaping a strong future for us as an institution. And I think we're well on our way. So that's all I've got under V. And I know we've got a presentation around enrollment. So if there aren't any other questions for me, I will introduce Brett Reinert and Dennis Krieb, who are both going to take about 5 to 10 minutes and kind of give a snapshot of where we're at enrollment wise, and of course, entertain any questions that you may have. So Chairman Hyen, if it's okay, I'll pass that on to Brett and Dennis.
Correct. Good.
Oops, took a minute to find my mute button. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm glad to talk a little bit about enrollment, and we've been talking in the previous semester over some of the things we've been trying to do to really increase enrollment at Lewis and Clark. And I want to let you know, one of the things we've been really doing is trying to track more effectively. So I can report this week that as of January 11th, we are down 11%, 10.9% on campus credit students. That's head count, and we are down 12.8% on credit hours on the campus. So that number doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot by itself, because there's context in which to place that. So I'd like to point out a few things. The first is that that does not include high school partnership enrollment numbers within that number. The second thing to think about as we look at that number is that we still have what we call a late start program for those that missed maybe this beginning of the semester, 4 weeks into the semester. There would be courses available for that. So there's possibility of additional enrollment generated by our late start program. And we do have both first 8 weeks and second 8 weeks classes in a typical semester. So there may be a second 8 weeks enrollment yet to emerge from some of these classes as well. Just to refresh your memory, how we look at these numbers. So we try very hard to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. So this number that I'm giving you today is a comparison to spring of last year, the spring semester of last year. This is not the change in enrollment from fall semester to spring semester. This is this week in the enrollment cycle compared to the exact same week in the enrollment cycle last spring semester. So that's roughly a 12%, 13% decline in enrollment and credit hours from that to that. So all in all, not necessarily exactly where we want to be, but definitely some positive traction on reversing that. We can begin to see results from the intense effort we're using to advertise and to get the word out about some of the new and innovative and interesting programs that we have on campus. I also point out, as Dennis mentioned, and he's gonna talk more about our enrollment in the context of what the state is seeing. But the 10th day report is the census numbers that Dr. Traska was referring to. And 10th day report is kind of a misnomer because it doesn't necessarily always just happen on the 10th day. It's an ICCB report that's required. We're obliged by law to submit it to ICCB, and they call it the 10th day report, but we actually have a window from when we can report those numbers. So typically what we have done and set up in practice is that and I think the next one is due February 1st. I didn't realize this was going to come up, so I didn't think about the 10th day report. If it's due February 1st, we back 7 days off of that number, whatever the due date is. And that gives our IT staff plenty of time to generate the numbers, and we submit the report from there. And so it's not necessarily arbitrary, but it's not necessarily the 10th day either, but they call it the 10th day report. And that's our census numbers that we submit to ICCB. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's coming out February 1st. So that's kind of a picture of where we find ourselves at this point in the semester. We still have a week of enrollment this week before classes start next week. And as I said, we'll have late start options and second 8-week options that people will be enrolling in. And the high school partnership numbers, the vast majority of them go in the fall semester, but there are some that we will pick up in the second semester. It won't be nearly as big as the numbers from the fall semester. So that's oh, yes. Was there a question?
Yes, so thank you for that information. And as I recall, it was maybe a year ago that we started this intense effort to look at enrollment. Maybe it began more in February, but it's kind of putting you on the spot. But, you know, how far have we come in a year, do you think?
I think, I wish I had, well, I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but you're right. It was about a year ago that we established the enrollment task force, and we really did focus on what are low-hanging fruit and what are immediate things that we can be doing. And I would have to say that most of the efforts in the enrollment task force have been focused on two areas. One, we're process things internally that we need to get straight with us, and get so that we can be more efficient and process things better. But a lot of the effort actually looked at how we were marketing the programs and services that we have, and really refocus. We're trying to transition. I think it's safe to say, and if anybody disagrees with me, you're more than welcome to speak up. But the conversation has really gone from a general Lewis and Clark advertising scheme of just advertising Lewis and Clark to really focus on, okay, these are programs that we have at Lewis and Clark. You can get this process operations and technology degree. You can get this instrumentations and control. We have an engineering degree. So we've really refocused how we're advertising and talking about the programs that we have. We're really taking much better advantage of social media. We're getting out there, we're getting in front, and we're trying to be timely in how we get out there and get in front of where our students are. Just a general recognition that we need to be where and when our students want to be. And so I think, do I have numbers-based data to share with you this evening about how far we've come in that year? No, because quite frankly, I'd forgotten about that anniversary. I didn't think about it in those terms. But my gut feeling is we've really been able to arrest the slide that we were seeing previously. And I think Dennis and I could actually, now that we have that specific question, I think we could probably look at that to see if that's an indication. The challenge is controlling for the effect and impact of COVID on this. We had a lot, kind of a confluence of a lot of influences on the enrollment cycle, all happening at the same time. So I don't know control for that, but we could definitely toss some things around on that. But my gut feeling is, we've really been able to slow down the decline at the very least.
Brett, I got a question.
Sure.
We used to publish a catalog, and we quit doing that. And I know that because, expensive to send that out, but there's a lot of places like Julie and I were talking about is, you can't get internet. You're kind of limited to what you can get. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on publishing a catalog again? If that would help?
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that actually has come up in conversation, both in the context of enrollment task force and as we've been doing some site visits and things down to the CECs. And you're right, there's a need for some sort of a print for those people who do not have the internet access to do that. What we've talked about is maybe some sort of a hybrid model that allows us to put an abbreviated catalog together, not nearly as intensive or as exhaustive of a list, but targeting specific market areas with very specific offerings in areas where it makes sense to target them. And I can give you an example of the conversation I've had with some of our CEC staff in Carlinville. Is they're some of the people who took maybe non-traditional type or maybe just self-improvement rather than for credit instruction up there, really looked for the catalog to find out what we were offering and how we were offering it and that kind of thing. And we had just discontinued that practice completely. So maybe what we've come around to the understanding is maybe there's a need or a role for a very targeted print version of that we could get out to let people know what's happening, and maybe link that back to a web resource that they could follow on if they have it, and make that communication available more directly to the staff members at our CEC so that they can talk knowledgeably about what we're doing. So we're trying to figure out the details of how that works, but that has been brought up in the context of the enrollment task force, definitely.
And Brett, if I could just jump in to try to answer Dwight's question too, we used to print the class schedule, and of course there's a ton of research that would tell you that printing that has not helped or hurt anyone in the past, which is why a lot of people have abandoned that practice. It's expensive. Of course, we mailed it to every home. But one of the things we are doing, if you'll recall, we're working with Interact Communications, and they're working on a marketing strategy for us. So one of the things they may suggest to us is that's something we need to look at doing again, or some version, as Brett's talking about. So we're waiting on that report from Interact, but they're going to help us drive a lot of our marketing and advertising efforts in a much more strategic way than we have in the past.
One thing that I will add is that our new modes of instruction, including something called Blend Flex that we're piloting this spring, and we're working on a competency-based program for welding that we'd like to pilot in the fall. I think those are all access points that are going to help increase enrollment for students as well. We ran some data on our 5 modes of instruction from fall, and students fared well. In fact, the overall success rate, which is getting an A, B, or C in a course, was a little higher than it was last fall, even during a pandemic. So kudos to our faculty for really doing a great job. But I think that these will also help in the enrollment efforts to bring students to campus.
We had a really good competency-based education panel today. Well, I mean, it was a panel of 1.5 because we had Glendon showed up a little late, but Jeff, what was Jeff's last name from Nicolay? They have
it's Labs.
Yeah.
Jeff Labs. There were 81 people on the Zoom.
Yeah.
Call.
And so that's really good news because, obviously, part of this vision of growth and creating equitable access for students is really looking at where can we create broader ways, access points, so to speak, I think, as Jill mentioned, for our students. So a student has more than one option to take a program or a course because not everything is for all students. So I think, to your question, Julie, I think over time, and I mean short time, we'll see with these new modes of instruction and access, and I think the enthusiasm reflected in 81 faculty tuning in to something new and different that will affect how they approach their work is positive. And so I'm just excited it truly is exciting to know that we're beginning to explore some innovative things that, frankly, not very many other schools are looking at. I mean, across the country, sure, there are schools that dabble in these things. And I know Nicolay referenced, they saw some good growth and broader access for their students, which helped them, a very small rural community college. So just, again, appreciate everyone's effort around those. And of course, the work that Brett and Dennis and others have been doing from a data perspective. So thank you.
Well, the main reason I asked the question is I figured you would have, a positive answer. And I really appreciate all the work the enrollment task force has done and to refocus everyone on campus to think about enrollment. And then with the help of Dr. Traska, obviously, we're really on a roll here, I think. So Good job, you guys, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Hello to everybody. I just want to quickly, on that last comment Julia made, I don't want to give away story with the strategic plan. That's going to be kind of coming attraction. So we're all waiting with bated breath to see how that shakes out. But I've been poring over this data for a while. Lots of responses, lots of comments. And to your point, Julie, enrollment is at the top of the list, really, as far as I can see, for the whole campus community. So I think just having that recognition that we're going to kind of talk realistically about enrollment, we're going to have honest conversations, and we're going to just kind of peel the onion back to see what's happening here, and that'll be fix it. So in my opinion, I think that's a major stride for the whole campus. I won't give any more away.
But Dennis, did you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, I can.
Numbers are in the context of the state.
And just to put some context around enrollment, and I will just say that what I'm going to share is informal. This is not official stuff from the ICCB, but institutional research offices will share data with one another just to kind of take the pulse of where they're at. Last December, there was one of these emails that went around asking for everybody to share their numbers. And at that time, really, which was about the second week of December, we were at really just above, we were in the top half. I think our enrollment at that point was negative 18.8%. And then I think our headcount was negative 17.7%. The state was a little higher in terms of the enrollment losses, so we were doing better. I can tell you that there was a recent update with these IR offices last week, and they were reporting almost identical numbers for headcount and credits at negative 17%. So the average community college for those reporting, which was 27, was their enrollments were negative 17% for spring. And Brett just reported that our numbers from yesterday, we were negative 10.9% on headcount and negative 12.8. So that's a nugget. We hang on to those nuggets. It's a step in the right direction. We seem to be doing slightly better than the state, considering all the other circumstances. So again, that's what we have for now. There's nothing official, but just to kind of take the pulse.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, congratulations. It seems like team is working. And I know that's what we started before Dr. Tresca got here, and he picked up the ball and is carrying it like an all-pro back. So appreciate that. Yeah, team effort. That's nice. Everybody working together. That's congratulations. Any more on W? Or do we go to discussion items? I think we're probably ready for that.
Okay. I can, I'll begin with the Manny Jackson Center for the Humanities financial report. And what I'll do is I'll talk through some of the monthly expenses that we see at Manny Jackson. And I'll also frame it in that, I am having some discussions with Dr. Artis and with Jeff to really begin looking at our contracts across the board, but particularly at facilities like Manny Jackson, which we aren't using. And so currently we do invest around $20,000 per month on everything from custodial to, water, sewage. Now, it's important to note that in that number, which is a large number, we have contracts with custodial and grounds and maintenance and security, and we basically split that contract up across all of our locations based on square footage. And so there's an allocation that's kind of attached to each property. So, but we are looking at things like, hey, we have an internet contract, and so we have internet service that's around 3,000 that's allocated to Manny Jackson, but there's no one at Manny Jackson. So are there some things in our agreements that we may be able to negotiate to say, hey, listen, we're not using this facility, can we pull back? Even if it were 6 months, you look at internet service, 6 months times, $3,000 is $18,000 that we can save the institution. So I think all of us, sir, to your point, Chairman Hine, is that, we're all really taking a harder look at things. I think we have to be smart where we invest our money, but also we have to make sure that we're being cognizant of where there may be some opportunities to save. So, we're also naturally looking at Manny Jackson Center for Humanities and, what's the future utility of that facility. I think it's important to note that this evening, and we'll continue to bring reports and updates to the board as that comes together through both our strategic planning process and, again, more broad discussions at the leadership level. But that's where we're at financially for fiscal year 2021 as of December 31st. We're at just under $20,000 per month for the expenses for that center. Any questions on that I may be able to entertain, or Mary may be able to help me out a little bit if I can't answer those, but any questions or thoughts? Okay. If not, I'll move on to the next item, which is the iGen, transition from iGen. I think a little before I arrived at Lewis and Clark, I know there was discussion and some movement to really look at kind of removing ourselves from the fiscal agent role of the iGen process or organization, I should say. And, that kind of got staggered a bit. And we're also on that steering committee, and after additional vetting, looking at the numbers. One of the things that I sort of, in a tongue-in-cheek way, it basically came down to the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I mean, we do get some money from iGen, but the amount of time and effort and energy that the team is putting in to all of the process that goes into managing and overseeing iGen as fiscal agent just wasn't worth it. So after some additional discussion with the team, looking at the data, having some discussion around, okay, what does this look like from a ground level? We decided, hey, let's just kind of cut away from this. We do hold the fiscal agent role till the end of June. And as of, I think, yesterday or today, the request for proposals went out to all colleges, all community colleges in Illinois, to see if there are any institutions interested in taking on the role. I can tell you that we learned late this afternoon there was a sort of a college that had inquired informally, and I guess and Mary shared this with me earlier, but just to give you a sense that this is a lot to handle for an institution. They decided that, the money that they would have received from iGen to manage it wasn't worth it. So they are backing out, and that was informal, but now the formal RFP process has started. They basically inquired to us and basically crunched the numbers and, kind of came back and said, geez, this really is a lot more than we bargained for. Now, naturally, if something doesn't happen with the fiscal agent role shifting, I've expressed our interest in, of course, supporting iGen in whatever way we can. We don't want that to fall apart. It supports, I think, a really important aspect of our state, and it really supports a lot of work on many of our community colleges related to sustainability and renewable energy. So that's where we're at with iGen. That transition is beginning. We're on through June 30th. And I'll keep everyone informed if you're interested on what's happening on the RFP side. I guess cautiously optimistic may be a way to put it, but I guess we'll see what happens. Any questions on the iGen piece? Now, if you do have questions, we will still be participants in iGen. We can still apply for those dollars and look at how those dollars may attach to some of the initiatives and work that we're maybe focused on campus.
Is that
Yes,
fee
sir.
for handling that, is that set? I think it was 80,000. Who sets that, or is that a bid, or?
No, it's a percentage of the total awards. Is that correct, Mary? Can you?
It's an indirect cost is what we receive out of that. So it's a percentage depending on the grant. So it can vary depending on the funding source. The first 2 million, it was 10%. The second 2 million, it was 16%. But here's where the catch comes in. You can only take that on the first $25,000 of any contract, and you cannot take it on anything that is capital. So by the time you start ticking away at the amount of dollars that we cannot take indirect cost on, that's part of, it sounds really great until you do the math, until you actually break it down. And then when you add to it some of the headaches that we've We've encountered, difficulty getting paperwork, begging for invoices. I actually have a disbursement that was made probably a year and a half ago for which I still do not have backup. That puts the risk on the college. There's a lot to it, but I did not have the opportunity to discuss the issues we were facing with the interested college. They backed out on their own. So I will say that the person where this interest lied has worked with Rob in the past, so had some knowledge of what she was getting into as well.
Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? Okay. Next item is Z, which is an update on incorporating performance-based measures into the college compensation system. And this is a discussion that has been happening at our personnel committee meeting. And, we're at a point here where I think, I know board member Rust has brought up some thoughts and perspective on this. And he and I had I think a really good conversation the other day. I think we had about 30 minutes scheduled. We went almost 2 hours. So, we had a lot of good stuff to talk about. And what we're going to do, I told Mr. Russ that we are in the process of also looking at our performance measurement system on campus. So how we evaluate team members in relation to the core expectations of their role. And I think inherent in that process eventually may be an opportunity for us to look at, can we attach, a merit-based component to that process? I've shared with the personnel committee some thoughts and ideas on this. I think it's a very important piece to look at from a philosophical perspective as well as a cultural perspective. We certainly don't want to create, where we are awarding a certain team member cohort and not another cohort. So there may be some things down the road that we look at. We agree to kind of keep the book open, but look at performance evaluation first. Be sure that we totally implement our Gallagher study compensation, the compensation study that was done, I believe, last year, being sure that all of the movement that needs to happen on that, on those scales happen, and then kind of move gradually toward what does the culture of compensation increases look like moving forward? So I think a really positive discussion. I think at the end of the day, just looking at characteristics of the organization that can help us move forward and help award and reward our team for, I think, what frankly is going to be really positive work moving forward. So Mr. Russ, do you have anything you wanted to add to that? Please do. Otherwise, appreciate everyone's time hearing that item. So, Mr. Rust, you're muted. I don't know if that's good or bad. Sir, you're muted. I don't know what was wrong. Something was going wacky here. Anyway, I just didn't want to leave everyone with the impression that we spoke for almost 2 hours on performance. No, we talked on some other things. Yeah, we talked about it. It was a little bit about soccer and a few other things. So. Yeah. It was good. It was good. It was a good, I enjoyed it. Any thoughts, concerns, anything else? But if not, thank you. And thank Gabe and Lori and some others that have been involved in that work. I know Gabe did a lot of research, worked with Bonzi Community College to really get a sense of what they've done at their institution. And then I reached out to a former colleague of mine back at Seward who sent some really good information. And I had forwarded that on to Kevin and to, I believe, Brenda as well, just to kind of give a sense of what the perspective was there. So, but anyway, so we're moving forward in some positive ways there. And if there's any other questions, whether they're now or later, just don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you. The next item is item AA under discussion items. And Lori said she would handle that one. This is just recognizing our 2020 Service Award recipients. So if you want to take that one. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. We had over 51 employees who in a normal year, we would have recognized, as you know, as board members at an annual dinner to celebrate their milestone achievements of 5 to 30 years of service. So We still plan to recognize them. We want to make them, we want to make them feel appreciated for their time and their service to the college. But of course, this year we couldn't hold the 35th Annual Service Awards Dinner. So I did just want to bring all of these names forward to the board and just provide a little bit of recognition for these years of service. I wish I would have added it up, but I'm sure it's a significant number. And it's always, for those of you who have attended, it's always a really feel-good event. And we love to hear from those individuals who, just kind of reflect on their time spent as a Lewis and Clark employee and all of the positives that we get to hear about it. So I just wanted to make sure we gave them some recognition this evening, and hopefully we'll be able to recognize them in person with a celebratory event here in 2021. So thank you.
I agree.
Two-
And yeah,
two
and
quick
yeah,
thi- oh,
yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just say two quick things to add. Typically that dinner does allow you to hear a fantastic speech every year as well by one. I'll leave the name out, but there's a great speech at that dinner every year. So sorry you're missing it this year.
We're lucky we don't have to hear that same speech that Gabe gives every year.
The second thing that Lori and I had talked about and she didn't mention here was typically we do give out an award based on years of service to all of our recipients, and they receive it at that dinner each year. This year we decided to change things up a little bit in terms of the award, to try to really focus those awards on local businesses as a result of really what's happening with the pandemic. So we did really try to encourage as best we can all of our employees to select a local restaurant or local business as opposed to the Amazons and Targets of the world this year to try to help out the small local businesses. So just one little change this year, but a worthy cause that I think many appreciated. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. We ready to move on to action items?
Yes, sir. I believe we are. And so
Need a motion to approve A and B, approval of grant or sponsored contract opportunities, pages 274 through 280. Need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Second. Need a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bob. Any discussion? No discussion. Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item AC, faculty seniority list, page 281 through 285. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Okay, a second. Need a second from someone.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Bob. Motion been made and seconded to approve the faculty seniority list. Is any discussion? Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Item AD, modify board policy 510, page 286 through 290. Motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hyen, excuse me,
Yes.
Wertz.
Yes.
Okay, now Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Okay. Item AE, approved revision to memorandum of agreement between college and Lewis and Clark Faculty Association regarding the full-time counselor position and authorize the employment of a second counselor for the period of March 1, 2021 through May 19th, 2021. with May 19th, 2021, representing the projected retirement date of the college's current counselor. That's pages 291 through 293. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, Bob, and then Dwight second. Any discussion?
I'm happy to take any questions on this resolution if anybody has any.
I don't really have a question on the motion exactly, but and I would hope that this thought process occurs anytime something like this comes up. But if there's a possibility that something should be outsourced, that would improve our flexibility if we can outsource it. I don't know if this particular function could be or not. It doesn't really matter. Just so you want to maybe keep that in mind as we go forward.
We're looking at doing that potentially as needed in addition to this position in terms of the need for mental health counseling for our students.
One additional thing to add here for the period March through May, where we will have the 2 counselors on board. Ideally, we do have federal gear funds to cover that gap of 3 months. So there won't be any institutional dollars spent on that second position.
Any other discussion or comment? Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. Item AF, approve the hire of a second full-time counselor position for the period of March 1, 2021 through May 19th, 2021, page 294. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Thank you, Dwight. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Chuck, any discussion? No discussion? Call for the vote.
Britt,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust.
Yes.
Motion passed. No further business on the agenda. Call the meeting closed.
Wait, David, I wanted to ask a general question. I'm not really sure who to direct this to, but I'd just like to know what the latest thoughts are on, at some point, getting in-person, face-to-face instruction going on a bigger scale.
Well, I can add that we're piloting several sections of BlendFlex, which means the students have the option to take the class virtually, just like we are now via Zoom, or they have the option to be in the actual classroom with the instructor as long as social distancing is maintained. So we will be limiting the number of students. So that, I think, is a push. We're going to have more students on campus in the spring than we did in the fall.
And we have a lot of our CTE programs coming back to campus. Labs are coming back, all the hands-on. Our clinic, our dental clinic is open, and we have patients, and we got through last semester with patients and no contaminations from COVID. So knock on wood, everybody is really doing extra work to make sure of that. But we're trying to bring back all the hands-on work, and it's going well so far.
We also have a variety of music classes on campus, some art classes. So, I mean, we're slowly moving in that direction.
And just to add to that, from a campus operations standpoint, we have a weekly COVID emergency management team meeting that includes our consultant, Chris Sikra, where we kind of just go through the metrics and the data and everything that we're seeing from on our campus to across the county, our healthcare region, and the state. we continue to look at that on a regular basis at the cabinet level as well. I will say this week, the metrics are trending down. We are under 12%, which I think is a really good sign in terms of loosening any current mitigations. We're in those tier 3 mitigations that basically eliminate, the ability to gather. And so we're hearing from a lot of colleges, a lot of people are trying to decide what to do about commencement ceremonies for the spring. So we have a lot of decisions, I think, from an operations standpoint as we move forward, and we're trying to, use all of the data that we have available to us to make the safest decisions for our employees and our students and visitors.
And Dr. Hill is going to talk a bit about athletics. So Sean, please.
Sure. So on the athletic side, we're trying to tighten up our protocols for COVID-19. Everyone in Region 24 has started practicing already. We're still trying to move forward with having all of our athletic seasons. So what we're doing now is putting together our final protocols, trying to evaluate options for testing, making sure that all 10 of our sports can have time in the gym if they want it, and also managing, so gym usage, managing athletic training facilities, managing our workout room, and then putting in additional rules that athletes need to follow regarding, how they spend their free time and trying to limit parties and gatherings and those kinds of things to keep everyone safe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other observations or questions or statements? If not, I thank you all for participating, and good meeting again. And thank you, Team Lewis and Clark, for working together and going forward. We congratulate you on that. So with no further business, we adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. So long.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.